Echo Point Nova is a game about shooting stuff in speed, and I think of the success of games like Doom, Vanquish, and Titanfall are illustrative of this delightful combination of gameplay. And Echo Point Nova is compared to all of these games with an extra dash of you traversing great distances on a hoverboard in a floating archipelago setting. I was immediately drawn to this because movement in games, especially first-person shooters, is something I enjoy immensely, and I know I'm going to be so utterly terrible at this game, but I will endlessly try to do cool wall running or sprint sliding moves. And the fact that this can also be done in co-op is icing on the cake. It's received great critical acclaim, but it likely deserves more. It was released in September 2024, developed by Greylock Studios based in the United States, and is out on Steam. I have to confess that 1000X Resist is likely one of the games at the top of this list. It has been recommended countless times across Questmarker's comments, specifically as games with a style of storytelling filled with wonder, and also in response to the daddening of video games, because this game is about motherhood. These recommendations are all for a good reason. It's increasingly become a critically acclaimed and awarded science fiction adventure game dealing with themes of identity, horror, post-contact survival, and motherhood, all bundled up in a 10-hour fully voiced experience that oscillates between first and third-person adventure and mystery. Developed by indie studio Sunset Visitor out of Vancouver, this is their first game and was released in May 2024. 1000X Resist is available on Steam and Nintendo Switch. Talking about Rise of the Golden Idol also gives me an excuse to talk about The Case of the Golden Idol, an indie deductive reasoning game that I've been playing on and off since my last Steam sale splurge a few years ago. In Case of the Golden Idol, you follow vignette scenarios, uncovering whodunit or what happened stories from each, investigating scenes and piecing together what happened and using your deductive reasoning. All are centered on this cursed golden artifact, which gives it a bit of a gothic or supernatural undertone in its sort of Victorian adventurous setting. It doesn't look like much, but it's brilliantly fun. It follows along in this new genre of knowledge games like Her Story and Obra Dinn and Outer Wilds and more. Rise of the Golden Idol is now the sequel, and it promises more of these investigations, but what caught my attention was the expanded and more sophisticated UI that will allow for more interesting and complicated scenarios. Sign me up. Developed by Color Grey Games, a studio of two brothers out of Latvia, Rise of the Golden Idol was released in November 2024 and is available on Switch, PlayStation, Xbox, and Steam. This wouldn't be a Questmarker list without some small, narrative-driven game that heavily features themes of history, culture, and clashing perspectives. Nishu Takuatshina, or Two Falls, is from an indie dev studio out of Quebec and focuses on the twin stories of a French settler and an Innu hunter in 17th century New France, which is now called Canada. There are themes of colonialism, religious fanaticism, friendship, survival. There's also a dog and a lumberjack in these beautiful environments of Eastern Canada. As a first-person game, this blends a mix of narrative with some investigative mechanics, but these are all pretty light in service of telling a story. Yeah, this is all right up my alley. One of the writers is an Indigenous woman living in Quebec, so I'm intrigued by the authenticity of telling a story that mixes the province's history of Catholicism with indigeneity. Released in November 2024 by indie studio Unreliable Narrators, Two Falls is available on Steam, Epic, PlayStation, and Xbox. Drova is a pixel art, retro-inspired action role-playing game, but the key word for me there is action. I'm always on the hunt for isometric, choice-driven RPGs that aren't stylized after games like Pillars of Eternity or Baldur's Gate, so Drova seems set apart. And layering on a combat system on top of its hand-drawn environment and its reactive world, and supposedly multiple kind of factions and faction play, I'm deeply curious. This game is probably one of the few on this list that could be a total coin toss for me, but I'm drawn to its core features and elements enough to give it a try. Developed by Just 2D, a small indie team out of Germany, Drova is their first game. It was released in October of last year and is available on Steam. If you're a longtime viewer of the channel, Dungeon of Hinterberg should come as no surprise as to why it's on my radar. Marketed as a puzzle adventure exploration game, Hinterberg has everything I look for in this kind of experience: mountains, puzzles, ruins. But now, also with snowboarding, kayaking, wind magic, sword swinging, and more, Set in the Austrian Alps and somewhere else that's magical and unknown, where Louisa tries to escape her boring corpo job, aren't we all? Dungeon of Hinterberg has the art style and presentation that I'm always drawn to, and something I can't wait to try. Released in July of 2024 by Austrian studio Microbird Games, Dungeon of Hinterberg is available on Xbox, PlayStation, and Steam. For a second in my life, I was very tempted to try the League of Legends Auto Battler after somehow getting recommended it to me on YouTube. Instead, I want to try Mechabellum. Mechabellum is a turn-based auto battler strategy game that's all about mechs. And I'm no mech aficionado, but something about Mechabellum's clear presentation and style and massive amounts of lasers and artillery strikes a chord in me. It's playable against humans and bots and comes in 1v1 face-offs as well as 2 versus 2 and then 4-player free-for-alls. Supposedly to this day, it has pretty good matchmaking, so that's a plus. The mix of turn-based decision-making with real-time action has always been a draw for me to try some of these auto-battler games, as I've never had the precision of the micromanagement of Zergs or Pylons, so I'm excited to give Mechabellum a try. Developed by Chinese indie studio Game River, Mechabellum was released in September 24 and is available on Steam. Owning a Steam Deck has renewed my love for a particular genre of video games, JRPGs. And at the top of my indie wishlist for these games is Bloomtown, set in an inspired but in spooky version of 1960s Americana. Mixing turn-based combat, monster taming, social mechanics, fishing, cooking, hunting, crafting, like the whole host of things. And it has this vibrant world and this nostalgic adolescent energy that I'm keen to explore. It's marketed as a retro blend of Persona and Earthbound. Having loved the former and always wanted to play the latter, this has me eager to give it a try. Released in September 2024, Bloomtown was developed by Different Sense Games in Lithuania and Lazy Bear Games, also I think based out of Lithuania, and is available on Switch, Xbox, PlayStation, and Steam. Caribbean Legend is probably the most unrefined looking game on this list, but as someone who bounced off of Sid Meier's Pirates last year, but who has a love for pirate gameplay, like in Black Flag, I'm always on the hunt for something that kind of captures the pirate adventure sailing fantasy, scratches that itch, and Caribbean Legend looks like it could be it. It's a remaster of an old Russian game called Sea Dogs, and the game is set in 1654, just before the golden age of piracy. It's an open-world pirate RPG that boasts hundreds of hours of gameplay. I could care less about that. But more so, it promises the ability to plunder ships and raid forts and amass an entourage, and fully embrace the idea of trying to become a pirate lord. This has the least positive reviews on Steam's on this list. It had a messy 1.0 launch, but sometimes we just gotta give a game a shot. And Caribbean Legend is gonna be mine. I'll report back if it doesn't make it to the 2-hour mark. Released in February of last year, Caribbean Legend is developed by Blackmark Studio, which I believe is out of Russia, and is available on Steam. Arco is likely the most well-reviewed game on this list in terms of Steam reviews, and definitely one of the least reviewed games. Described as a Mesoamerican RPG, awesome. Set in the North American frontier, awesome. That blends tactics and real-time gameplay, which is, again, an awesome combination. Arco follows 3 stories seemingly written in the Western genre that has you explore, find items, fight, and more. And the more also includes riding llamas across these cinematic landscapes. The narrative of Arco has my particular attention, as it boasts having indigenous heroes in its storyline, not something we see every day. And from what I've read elsewhere, its writing seems to be one of its best designs. If there was one game on this list that I had to get on sale tomorrow, I'm pretty sure it would be Arco. Developed by an indie team spanning the globe, Polish artist Franek Nowotniak, Australian designer Max Cahill, Spanish composer Jose Ramon Garcia, and Mexican developer Antonio Urbe, Arco was released in August 2024 and is available on Switch and Steam. Unlike many games that refresh old art and graphical styles, Skald Against the Black Priory looks ripped out of the 1980s role-playing game scene, but now it has a new engine under the hood. The pixel art, chunky UI, overland map, party screen, portrait-style NPC interactions, dice rolling, and tiny inventory icons, all of it feels immensely nostalgic, reminiscent of the Ultima games I never played. But what Skald also promises is a refreshed tactical combat and a dark Lovecraftian fantasy world, and I'm always on the lookout for dark fantasy beyond the epics of the From Software games. This is all packaged in a game that evokes the classic D&D adventuring party, so I'm pretty sold. And I think if you're itching for tactics fantasy combat in the vein of Baldur's Gate 3, there should be something on your radar. Released in 2024, Skald Against the Black Priory is developed by High North Studios, a small indie studio out of northern Norway, and is available on Steam. One of my favorite games of recent years is the spaceship dueling deck-building roguelite Cobalt Core, and for the past few weeks I've been sinking my teeth into Balatro, finally. But Shogun Showdown is the next game in this genre I am eager to try. The core deck-building mechanics look all too similar for the genre, but I was immediately drawn to the emphasis on positioning and movement, something that I really enjoyed in Cobalt Core, and I still struggle with the stiffness of Slay the Spire being so stiff. Shogun Showdown blends movement into its card combos and synergies, and I adore chunky pixel art UI and art style, and would happily add a Shogun-inspired setting to my library of indie deck builders. This is what I'll be going after next in this genre, whenever I stop seeing jokers in my dreams. Shogun Showdown was released in September 2024 by an Italian solo developer, Robatino, and is available on Steam, itch.io, and Switch. There you have it, 12 games with developers spanning around the globe. The international spread of the devs in these 12 I thought was pretty awesome. So there you have it. I hope this was helpful and brought to light some corners of the video game space that you might not be used to. If you watched this and none of these are new to you, please leave a comment so I can reach out and gift you an honorary internet badge. As always, wishlist games if you're interested in them. It helps the developers immensely with the marketplace algorithms and overall visibility of their games. And let me know what you thought of this video below. I always want to bring attention to indie games that are off the beaten path in my reviews and essays, but I'm still struggling with a format for this third kind of video. I don't know if I really like these lists, but let me know what you think, or if you have any ideas or suggestions, and if you're going to pick up any of these on the next big sale.